Welcome to my basement, everybody. Happy Friday. It is always fun to do a podcast, a live podcast on Friday, because it gives us a chance to exhale, particularly after the many hours of superhero movies and television shows that many of us have consumed over the last several hours. I've brought in the perfect guest today to join us in Vic's Basement. Rob Keyes is the executive director and the editorial director at ScreenRant. He has been writing about movies and interviewing celebrities and directors and writers about the film industry, but also covers games and all kinds of other really fun stuff. But the cool thing about Rob, and why I wanted to have this spoilery chat with him, is that he was actually on set with ScreenRant at when Justice League was filming, and that's going to be a very fun conversation. First of all, my friend, how are you? How are you doing, Rob?
Thank you. I'm happy it's Friday, but I'm happier to be here with you, Mr. Lucas. You are somehow never aging. You are as you were in the late 90s covering N64. No, but this is awesome. I love Vic's Basement, and I'm happy to be back.
It's great to have you back. It has been busy for us basement content creators over this last year, right?
No kidding. It's been a wild, even with all the video game delays, there's been no delay in other content to cover, right? Especially streaming shows and now streaming movies like this one. So yeah,
streaming it's also proving itself, right? Like I think it was kind of a risk idea to kind of go up and sort of challenge Netflix, and then The Mandalorian comes out, it's amazing. WandaVision comes out, it's amazing. Amazon's been doing some really cool, like everybody's jumping in. And now this MCU thing where you're seeing TV shows that cost as much as and look like movies.
Totally.
It's crazy.
And not just that, if you go back like even 5 years ago, there was a lot of controversy in Hollywood about J.J. Abrams and a few other directors saying we have to bring the theatrical experience home and we charge a premium, $50 or whatever it is. And they're like, no, it's crazy. It's never going to happen. And now like Disney Plus is doing that with Raya and the Last Dragon, Mulan, and every network's doing that. Even Justice League, right? Isn't it not a premium offering on Crave to get it, or Wonder Woman?
No, you just have to be subscribed to Crave.
Oh, and, that's good.
I don't know how we are, but we are. We still have a cable deal in our house, so. And it's
good for you, Vic.
So. Well, I had it for a long time because I was from television. I wanted to support television.
Oh, that's fair.
And then that started to make less and less sense. The more years of YouTube I started to put under myself.
Now you get it.
But then they did a sweet deal with. As they all do with the bundling of everything.
You bundle it all together, sure.
Yeah, so we just kept some channels, and Crave was one of them. So I watched Justice League, and I can't wait to talk about it. But first, there's a couple things that we have to do. First of all, we have to thank our sponsor. Hold on, I got to find my video. Where is it? Oh, there it is. But first, we have to thank our sponsor, the Gaming Stadium. They are Canada's leader in esports tournament facilitation. They put on tournaments every single weekend. They've been blown up with Star Wars Squadrons, as a matter of fact. Make sure you check them out at tgs.gg and thank them for supporting Vic's Basement. Those guys are amazing. All right, and the second thing that we have to do is we have to say hello to all of our people here. Rudy Garcia is in the house. Robert Tolan, yo! Hi there. Nintendo Boy 17, Graham Coombe. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. He says Alpha Cat is here, and Ethan Jory says Goku is in the house. So Ethan Jory is... this is what I love about the chat, is that they're so nice to each other. They're always... connecting and befriending each other, which is really lovely to see. Goku is here, of course, and we also have Rudy Garcia. Now, I have a feeling that today might not be as populated because I don't think everybody has seen the Justice League movie. It just came out yesterday, right? And it's a commitment to watch the whole thing. Did you watch it all in one sitting?
No, unfortunately, I could not. It's funny you say that, though, because you remember there was a little period of time there when they said it was going to be released almost episodically. And in the film, of course, if you don't know, it's divided up into 6 chapters with like a bit of an epilogue at the end. I almost watched it that way. I watched like half of it and then a chunk of it and then I rewatched bits of it too, because I had to, as you can imagine, when you're just dissecting a feature such as this, there's a lot to dig through, and we have a lot of content creators working on this. So yeah, I rewatched parts of it as well, like specific scenes, but not in one sitting. No way.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it first thing when I woke up yesterday and went live with the show later on after I had watched it. But it was like I sat down to eat my cereal. starting to watch the movie.
Hope you had a lot of cereal.
I ate some cereal. It was very nice. Drank my tea. And then a few hours later, I went and made myself a sandwich, came down and had lunch. Movie's still going. Still going, this movie.
Had a shower, still going. Yeah.
So I felt like I lived with Batman, Superman, Cyborg, The Flash, and Wonder Woman for a bunch of time.
It's almost a metaphor for the development of this film, though, when you think about it, right?
Let's talk about this development of this movie, okay?
Sure.
Because obviously, and I read some of your work and some of the other interviews that were done on set at the time, and there was a bit of a course correction that Zack Snyder and Deborah Snyder were trying to kind of project out into the world, that they heard the feedback about Batman versus Superman, and they were trying to change things up a little bit with Justice League. Talk to me about what it was like to visit the set of Justice League.
This is such a wild experience. One, it's so long ago, I almost forget all the details. But yeah, this was fall 2016, believe it or not. We're coming up in 4.5 years,
Nuts.
Which is blowing my mind. But yeah, it was fall 2016, and Zach's publicist had reached out to me, which is very unusual because on a big studio film, the studio PR runs point on anything like this. So the fact that we have the personal from the director is not normal. Sometimes you get that in an indie film or if you're friends with someone, but this was different. This was Zach's publicist reaching out, calling me directly saying, hey, we're going to bring 4 or 5 or 6 people who were kind of lukewarm BVS. We want to show you what we're doing differently this time. And it has to happen this Friday. And I'm like, can I send someone else? Because like I was going to LA to do my meetings. We had another office opening there, and I was just not available. They said, nope, it has to be you, and it has to happen Friday. So I'm like, okay. So I went to LA, did a bit of my trip, flew from LA to London, and then came back to LA to finish my meeting. Wow. And then the other weird part about this, there's many weird parts about this. The other weird part about this is that the embargo was going to be like after that weekend. Essentially, we do the set visit, and 2 days later is the embargo, which again, unheard of. This film wasn't scheduled to come out for a year, right? Usually hang on to this until they gear up the marketing campaign. But there was a reason for this. And I mean, I don't know how much you want to get into the
I want to get into the weeds, and I can predict the reason. Is this the struggles that Zach was having with Warner Brothers were happening then, and they wanted to present that the fans were interested in this new direction that Zach was going, that they were I mean, that's what I got when I read that stuff.
They handpicked in our vertical of online websites which cover movies like this, like more than most, they had handpicked people who were lukewarm BVS to do exactly what you're saying. They wanted to show us, hey, we heard your feedback, we're doing something differently, and here's our plan. Yeah. But the other part of it, as we learned many years later and all throughout this whole development, is that they were they knew they were on their ropes. There was a lot of fighting going on behind the scenes, which you learned over the years, and I guess especially recently, because Zach and Deb are very open about the situation. But so to back up a little bit, so again, Zach's personal publicist is bringing us there. Now here's what happened. There was supposed to be 5 or 6 of us, a very private thing. The day that's supposed to happen, the day before, Warner Brothers International learns that this is happening, and they're like, oh, you're doing a set visit? Well, we have to get our key international influencers involved. So they start bringing in press from different areas of Europe, from even Iceland and Mexico, all these people. So now they added like 10, 12 people to what was supposed to be a 5-person set visit. And now it's not Zach's publicist and the unit publicist. Now it's Warner Brothers International plus 10 plus 5. That's this big, big group. Well, guess what? Warner Brothers domestic, our Warner Brothers, learns that Warner Brothers International is doing a set visit. Like, whoa, you're doing press? And they hijacked it. Now they're organizing it with it. So they invited even more websites. So what was supposed to be a private affair, this very personal thing, 5 people, is now like 18, 20, 22 people and 7 publicists. And what was supposed to be like just going around set became an army of us having to sit down and wait and go from thing to thing. And that was very emblematic of the larger problems at work, where Warner Brothers was trying to get in there and hijack things and interfere. And we learned later as well, Warner Brothers had producers on set kind of keeping an eye on Zach, making sure he's doing his own thing. And the narrative was already starting to change. We were there talking to Zach and Deborah was emotional, tearing up on set, explaining what was going on, like what they were trying to do differently, and how it was kind of admitting that people didn't want a deconstruction of the superheroes at this point in time. For this franchise. They wanted to see a Superman who flies in blue skies with a blue costume, not like faded out colors. That's a weird example, but it does speak to it. And then Zach, same thing. At the time, they had announced a slate of films on an investor's call, mind you, including a Cyborg film in 2020. That never happened. Green Lantern Corps, Flash movie years ago. We're already past this whole timeline, but also Justice League 1 and 2. So we asked Zach about that, and he's like, hey, we asked him, are you shooting 2 at the same time, or are you planning to do 2 after? And he's like, well, I'm not really sure, or, if it happens, maybe. And it's like, what do you mean if it happens? Are you not planning this right now? And it's so strange. And Chuck Roven, the other producer, also made it sound like if they don't get this right, they're all going to get fired. And wouldn't you know, that's kind of how it played out a little bit. So
it's
very strange.
Clearly after watching, and this was my take on it, like I said it yesterday, there's vindication in this thing getting made because, obviously Zach and Deborah and all the creatives involved poured their life into it and their passion into it. Whether it was good or not is a totally subjective thing, but they really cared and were trying to make it happen.
That's it.
So there's vindication there. But how are you ever able to make anything creative when you've got the ground being ripped apart underneath your feet, like what was happening with them? But then also, I have to say that, Joss Whedon may have been a total dick to people, before and after around this movie, but it couldn't have been easy for him to be thrust into the middle of all that either.
No. That's a weird thing. People forget that part of it. It's like Whedon was a fixer they brought in, and his name was not included anywhere for a reason. They brought him in and forced him to get X amount of footage done under a certain time and budget without moving the release date. So that was far more Warner Brothers and their producers and a sketchy ex-CEO who was let go for doing some very controversial stuff. They were trying to keep their bonuses before a major acquisition with AT&T. So there's a whole bunch of layers of controversy there as well. That's a whole different story, but
it's such a mess, man. How did it become such a mess with Warner Brothers and DC? Why didn't they clearly wanted the Marvel adoration and a little bit of that business win, but why didn't they model their whole business division around DC like that?
There are so many moving parts of it. Part of it is a lack of direction, obviously, and everyone will say they don't have a Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige being the Marvel Studios head honcho, the one person who oversees the entire direction of the MCU, including now Disney Plus, so that you have a singular vision, a singular plan, which you can plan out and execute over 15 years. And if you make a mistake, you can fix it later in other chapters, and it's great. They can keep doing that. With this, you have producers who are flying in and out, a rotating list of bosses at the studio, other financial incentives screwing up everything else. But also, that problem still exists because I think they kind of wanted to do this back with the Christopher Nolan trilogy. And Nolan is the guy who brought in Zack Snyder to make the Superman movie. But instead of building a universe there, they just said, no, pretend that Christian Bale stuff never happened. It's its own universe. We're going to start again. It's not going to be connected. So they kind of derailed themselves from the beginning. They had $1 billion franchise with Christian Bale, and they said, we're going to leave that alone and start again. What?
Why?
You had it right there. You know what I mean?
And you had an ending with Christian Bale, that a natural thing, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt kind of ready to pick up the mantle if they wanted to carry on with that direction and be the new I mean, blunder after blunder after blunder.
That's part of it. But even now, it's never going to fix itself. And you'll hear the term multiverse is like the retcon fix for every sort of problem. None of these movies connect, and we'll talk about that with this movie especially. But even right now, if you look at what HBO Max is doing with their DC properties and what Warner Brothers Pictures is doing, it's not one production company. There are different production companies vying for different things. We have Berlanti, who comes from TV doing stuff. We have J.J. Abrams and his Bad Robot Company working with HBO Max to make Green Lantern Corps and his other films. And now we're talking about making Zatanna film. Then you have The Rock and his $7 Productions making Shazam and Black Adam as a separate universe. You had Snyder doing his own universe, and none of them connect. And James Wan's company's doing the Aquaman and the Trench spinoff. It's like, why are 5 or 6 different sets of producers or production companies working independently within the same universe?
I mean, that's very analogous to the way that Marvel just divvied up the rights to all their characters with Fox and Sony and all the other players out there.
For different reasons. Yeah. In the 90s, they were bankrupt and just that was Avi Arad, Mr. Toyman, businessman, was just selling rights left, right, and center. But he was smart, though. That was a different strategy. He was selling rights across the board because he knew long-term, if all these different companies made movies and this genre blew up, they would not cannibalize each other. Had he sold all the rights to one company, let's say Fox, Fox can only make 2 superhero movies a year. They're just going to make X-Men Fantastic Four forever. We would never get the Hulk movie with Ang Lee's Hulk movie. We would never get the Spider-Man movies of Sony. We would never get, you know what I mean? We never get the Blade movies or the Iron Fist they tried to make at Artisan years ago. But that was a different reason. But now, of course, it's the opposite. Marvel Studios wants so much content. Disney put it all back under one umbrella. And now we're getting potentially 4 movies and 4 TV shows this year, which is insane. And
it is easy to be on the outside and say, well, why don't they just do it that way? But what Kevin Feige and that's never been done before, ever, in any medium, anything, any creative, and nobody's ever batted $1 billion every time they've walked up to the plate like that. Nobody's been able to do that ever and keep all of these people so happy all these fans so happy all around. That's impossible. I mean, Star Wars never did that. Bond hasn't done that. Harry Potter hasn't done that. Nobody has done that.
They tried with Star Wars, and they kind of misfired that very quickly. They wanted the mandate there with Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm was like, let's do that. We'll do one movie, then two movies, and we'll get to 3 years sort of thing, and then we'll do TV shows. And they're sort of course correcting now because now they have, again, Disney Plus, the savior of all things. They can do endless Star Wars shows, and we saw that at the investors call in December. They announced 11 Star Wars shows in the works right now.
It's amazing. As long as they keep the quality bar and improve. I mean, because these are like the starting salvos with Mandalorian and with WandaVision. If that is, and I'm really digging Falcon and the Winter Soldier so far. I've only seen the one episode, but it feels great. But if they can kind of keep that as the beginning and grow, and so that we are getting kind of movie quality experiences, they're going to be doing great, And then everybody else, I mean, it's just shifting the content war into the streaming space. Everybody's going to have to lift up, right? Like we're not going to be able to get any more straight to DVD type movies on Netflix after this, right?
This is sort of derailing the conversation a bit of it, but part of the reason of many why Warner Brothers was trying to fast track to get to where Marvel was is that Marvel had broken into the zeitgeist, and with the real money, as anyone knows, especially with Star Wars, is the licensing of merchandise, right? And if you pay attention, there's a reason WandaVision is weekly and this show is weekly. And Mandalorian even more so. They had Mando Mondays. Every Monday, Hasbro and every toy company, Funko Pops, had a whole new set of all the toys and shirts ready with all the new costumes and characters revealed every single episode. Yeah. So
there's nothing cynical about that. We all want Grogu. We all want him.
I hope they balance it to the point where they're not just changing costumes, introducing characters weekly, just so we get that. Oh, we need that toy for that week. Therefore, this character has to show up here. It's like, oh no. But
dude, and I'm sure you are too. We're the living example of having too much of that for too long. Yes.
Boxes of stuff all over the floor over here. It's bad. It's bad.
We have to all be choosier with what they put the licenses on and what we spend our money on. The properties that we get out there.
Yeah.
Okay. 100%. We can go in a million different directions here, and all of this stuff is incredibly fascinating. But the peoples have joined us for us to spoil the crap out of Justice League Snyder Cut. First of all, Rob, what is the Snyder Cut, and why is it an important development and statement from Warner Brothers and HBO Max?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's for Zack Snyder, it's a bit of a redemption arc. Yeah, it's a poor choice of words, but for anyone who knows, Zack was sort of pushed out of the system. He suffered a very personal tragedy 5 months into shooting this thing. And that combined with him already kind of being on the outs with Warner Brothers Pictures and like all the stuff we talked about, people overseeing him, he was in this ongoing battle with them. And this personal tragedy had to make him make a decision. Do I spend time with my family, or do I keep trying to fight this fight that I'm losing my interest in? And he pulled out. And as we know, we got the Justice League, the Justice League by Joss Whedon and Warner Brothers Pictures, which was a bit of a mess. It was a disaster. It lost more money than it earned, and it was not exactly a licensing hit. And it kind of derailed the whole franchise. That was already starting to derail as it was, without having a plan, like we talked about. So after sort of in a very aggressive fan movement and a rapid change in the industry, partly due to the pandemic and the rushed nature of all these new streaming services, both HBO Max and Disney Plus, by the way, both were fast-tracked and launched without all their basic features. They just had to get something out there because they knew how important it was. And it was for Disney Plus, it was a home run. They have 100 million subscribers already. Can you imagine?
I know.
They are 4 years ahead of schedule.
Well, who honestly, which of your friends would you tell don't get Disney Plus? Especially now they have the Star stuff, so you've got all of the
which is awesome ad. Yeah,
it's amazing, right? It's massive, and it's such a massive.
Although Vic, they trapped us, man.
Netflix.
They launched that at $5.99 a month here in Canada, and then in February they increased it $3 a month, while also charging $35 to watch their premium movies like Raya.
Yeah.
But you know what? We'll all pay it because it's Star Wars, and so it's working. HBO
Have you
Max.
Been to Disneyland, Rob?
wait, yeah, I can't wait to go back. My God, who are we? It's true though; these do fund the parks whenever they reopen fully. That's a great story for another day. But yes, so with Snyder now you have HBO Max. More politics, by the way. So HBO Max and Warner Brothers Pictures are very separate entities under the larger umbrella of Warner Media, which is led by a very young man, Jason Kilar, who's kind of a business savant in a way. And he took this big risk this last year to say, hey, look, we need to fast track this. We're already behind the times on Netflix. We're mega behind the times on Disney Plus, who beat us at the gate with premium content, and they're killing it with Mandalorian and their Marvel plans. So of course their big plan is, hey, day and date releases. All of our movies will come to HBO and theaters at the same time when we can do that, right? And it began with Wonder Woman. And by the way, unlike Disney, all of the premium movies are free, right?
Yeah.
So when Godzilla comes out, Godzilla versus Kong in 2 weeks, and Mortal Kombat a couple weeks after that, they get that if you were an HBO Max subscriber, which is a great way to get in subscribers. And they desperately need that, especially for AT&T, they're corporate overlords. But with Snyder Cut, there's a very big reason why Warner Brothers Pictures wants nothing to do with it. The guys who wanted him out in the first place. So that's why this, of all these big movies, is the only one that's exclusive to HBO Max. So some of the people there realized there was a big fan movement and realized the story was not finished, and they want to kind of make amends, do a feel-good thing, get a lot of buzz. There's like an unnaturally large amount of online buzz for this, even though it's a relatively niche thing for a big budget superhero film. I use that term lightly, but it's a very aggressive fan base online. Like, they're very vocal. They can set worldwide trends in Twitter on a flip of a dime, and they realize that's a big thing. So if they can make that right and reset and bring back some attention to some of these characters, it's a rather relatively cheap investment. They don't have to spend $150 million to make Justice League. It's already mostly there. Mm-hmm. They just got to give them half that or a third of that. They gave them, I think, 40 to 70 million. There's conflicting reports to finish it, shoot a little bit more, and release it. And now they have this finished piece. And it propels Ezra Miller's The Flash back so they can get his movie going. It brings back Ben Affleck Batman, who also has an appearance in that Flash movie. And Aquaman again, and Wonder Woman. It's kind of self-feeding itself, and all these other future projects are trying to do. So the amazing story there is like, this movie, he was pushed out, essentially, didn't get to finish his movie, and 4 years later now gets to finish it and add more. And we can talk about what we saw on the set visit later, but like, they made some changes too. He was able to do more and change a bit of his original vision, partly to kind of wrap up what may be his end as part of this universe, or God save us all, he starts a whole new fan campaign for Restore the Snyderverse and Justice League 2. Who knows what happens next?
Well, let's I want to get into that a little bit here, but because I think it feeds into the spoilery type of discussions. But first of all, how did you feel about the movie, watching the film? Did you like the Snyder Cut?
Yeah, I enjoyed it for what it is. It's the easy to say, oh, it's better than the Justice League, whatever. Well, no doubt, that movie looked ugly as, I came to, without using profanities. It was a very ugly film, and messy and weird. What is surprising though is like, if you compare to the theatrical cut, which is way shorter, this thing's 4 hours, that was 2 hours and something. 75 or 80% of what was in the theatrical cut was Zack's footage. Warner Brothers somehow made it uglier. But you'd be surprised. There are a lot of things in there which I thought would have been very Joss Whedon-y, but they weren't. They were actually Zack Snyder. Maybe that was his attempt at trying to bring some levity to this franchise. But yeah, it's good. It's good. It's weird. It's simultaneously too long because it's a 4 hour cut, and there's like scenes that are very strange, incomplete edits, or that hang on too long, and because of the length, there are characters that pop in. You don't see him again for 90 minutes, or you don't meet Superman until 3 hours in. He doesn't talk to anyone when he shows up. And it's like, what? Or Aquaman's intro. There's a scene where these women are singing on the beach for feels like 5 minutes. And I don't know what they're singing about or why what is this? Weird. But at the same time, it's too short because I feel like there's so much to dig into in a lot of these scenes. And there's so many marketing gimmicks and setups for other things which don't exist yet and may never exist. So it's that weird, it could be a great TV show. It's not long enough for that. And it's way too long for a movie. So,
and I guess if you're in a bean counter, if you're an accountant at Warner Brothers and you start seeing these dailies and you start hearing the feedback, you start freaking out because it does, when you look at the totality of what Zack just shot and shot and shot, and it feels like he's out of control. It feels like it's a bit listless. Yeah. And this feels like a rough cut of it, even though I, too, enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed the movie as a redemption thing, as a vindication kind of tale, especially knowing the tragedy that his family went through. But also, I appreciated the stakes of the film. I felt like what was missing in the Justice League theatrical, which I didn't hate, mostly because I grew up with these DC heroes and it was just mind-blowing
I was the same,
to see these characters on screen. And the Superman Flash run that Joss put together to end that, I love that.
That was fun, yeah.
I thought that was great, and there was a little bit more color, but that's about it for apologizing for the Justice League movie that Joss made. Because after watching this, it's clear that Josh took out all of and Warner Brothers, they took out all the stakes, they took out all of the sense of what what was really the conflict that these heroes had to face. There was no real connection to that in the theatrical, whereas in this movie, even though they took too long to explain this stuff and there was tons of exposition, we understood, the threat.
And the same goes for some of the main characters, right? I mean, people will point to the Flash and mainly Cyborg as characters who needed a lot more time in the original cut, and the stakes personally. And Cyborg is it kind of begins and ends with Cyborg and his personal tragedy. And
this is his movie. This is the 100%. Cyborg movie. Yeah,
it's his movie plus 3 hours of randomness. But yeah, it really is though. And I remember seeing the theatrical cut. I was the same way. To me, and you got to go back to 2017. This is at a point in time when BVS was kind of like, it didn't get the best reviews.
Yeah,
it was projected to make $1 billion. It made 60-70% of that, and licensing and merch was a bomb. So it was a failure financially as a business. And it also compared to Marvel, who was just crushing it movie after movie and had all these big plans. It was a disaster period for them.
Who's going to buy their kid a Batman Affleck figure after Batman is maiming and shooting and killing everybody in a really dark, depressing Batman versus I love that creation. I love the athleticism and the I don't know, he's just hard boiled. I dig that, but it's not a licensing play.
No, it's a weird thing because they were trying to do appeal to the wide PG audience when it was really more R-rated material, which is when you see this movie, this is R-rated technically, and there's a lot of F-bombs and Batman likes to shoot aliens with his stuff, he does. Including their own guns, especially. Yeah. But you can do it both ways. You do PG-13, make a good movie, and kids love it and want to buy the toys. That's not this. Or if you get into the adult take, and Snyder's involved, so by default, it's the adult take. Yep. You have to make something very good quality so people want to buy all the collector stuff. And they didn't do either with the original cut. So that's where they took the L. But yeah, like you said, Cyborg, it really was his movie, and it's a shame that they kind of pushed him out of the Flash movie that's coming up, and his own movie probably never going to happen. But when we saw the theatrical cut, I loved Ray Fisher. He was barely in it, but I'm he's so dark and brooding. There's so much interest. I know there's so much more.
Is amazing.
That's it. And there's so much more there for him. And I'm glad they really fleshed that out and added more for this one, because that's one of the biggest highlights of this version for sure.
Doesn't hurt to have Joe Morton as the father too, right? This guy, he's a
Cyberdyne Systems, baby.
Yeah, he's a legend, and he's amazing in it, and it's very emotional.
And his mom too. His whole family sequence was amazing. So
loved it, all of it. Yeah, no, that was really, really solid. And I'll tell you the thing that moved me the most in this film was Billy Crudup watching his son get accepted into the criminology lab or whatever. He holds up he got the job, and then he just starts flipping out and telling, and he's in jail and he's telling everybody. And I'm like, I got chills and I laughed out loud, and I was like, that is an amazing performance.
So good.
Yeah.
And you want to know what's heartbreaking about that?
He's not in the Flash, I know.
They just took him out of the Flash because of scheduling. They delayed this movie 6 times, go through 6 different directors. We finally get to see him, and we all love him, and they're like, oh, guess what? Yeah. He's out. And so is Cyborg. It's they have not learned a thing. Still.
Yeah. Well, this is my question now, right? The movie is out. I think generally positive reviews out there. I don't know how you guys all feel. I promise I'll try to get to some of the comments and stuff. Chris Wynn, thank you for the super chat, by the way. You rock, my friend. Do we know what the pickup is? Do we know how many subscribers? Do we know there's a lot of positivity about this. Is this working for Warner Brothers?
There is. This is always an interesting thing. There is, but social media is very deceptive on this. You'll see movements on social media which bash a movie or say don't see this, or they say this is great, and then does it translate to box office, which we don't have for this movie, or does it translate? In my case, how many people are actively talking about this online outside of Twitter and are reading articles about it or engaging in purchasing products or subscriptions? It's a very different story sometimes. So I am very curious if this is niche or if this is going to be mainstream, especially since it's going up against Falcon and the Winter Soldier this weekend. Yeah. Again, Disney Plus is 100 million subscribers and is a little more international. HBO Max is
a little more kid friendly.
yeah, HBO Max is 15 to 20 million. So by default, your player pool, so to speak, is a lot smaller.
Yeah.
We won't know that until next week. I'm sure if they do not have a press release Monday or Tuesday saying we did this or broke this record, then you know it's not that great. They'd be hyping it up as well. And look, in terms of everyone wants to know is what happens next. Are they going to restore the Snyderverse? Can Zack do his trilogy and all this stuff? Zack himself will say, and he's very good at playing the media. Will say that he this is the end. Warner Bros. Pictures says this is a cul-de-sac for him. He has his win. We're done with him. But Warner Brothers Pictures does not speak for HBO Max.
Or
so
AT&T.
I'm very, that's it. So, and Zack will only do it. He's on record. Will say if he has 100% creative control, which he had on this because he forgoed his salary. He already got paid the first time around, so he did this for entirely for free. Use that millions of dollars to pay Junkie XL for the composition, to bring back actors, to do all the special effects with Whedon and everybody else, who, by the way, did a tremendous job in a very short time period.
Yeah.
We interviewed a bunch of people.
It honestly is a beautiful movie. I mean, I have major problems with the script. I think that the script has got lots of dead ends. I hate that line. It drives me crazy. What's your superpower? I'm rich. I can't stand that freaking line. That is not... It may be something that Bruce Wayne would say to a date, but it's not what Batman would say to anyone. He's smarter than that. He's not a showy dude. That's not the Batman that I grew up reading. And that's
true.
I really wanted that line cut. It's not. And I also found that all of Ezra Miller's comedy moments were so forced. Like
they were.
He just doesn't. They weren't, and it wasn't him as a performer. It's the way that they're written and the way that they're like. Uncomfortably
they made him
sandwiched in there.
He's too cringy in his first half.
Yeah,
I actually didn't. It's funny, the theatrical cut, I thought he had his funny moments. And like, okay, fine. I kind of want to see more of him. But in this version, the first half of the movie, I could not stand him talking. But the special effects and his powers are cool. And in the final act, the third act or sixth act, whatever, like when he's doing his big power show, it's like, this is awesome. Now I get it. And obviously his moments with his dad are like some of the best scenes in the film.
Those are great. Yeah. Like there is a soulfulness and a truthfulness with the performer. He's great. The tough thing, and I've said this too, is that Grant Gustin is unbelievable as the Flash. He's just so freaking good, and I can never forget him when I'm watching this. But I like Affleck in the suit more than out of the suit. I feel like he's too. He looks uncomfortable. He looks
and
like
his voice keeps changing. Like the level of gravel in his voice. I can't. Sometimes he's just Ben Affleck. Sometimes he's like, Alfred's my boss. It's like, wait, are you Batman now, or are you like, who are you? And he has a voice changer too. So why are you doing the gravel voice plus the voice changer? It's never consistent. So.
And it was weird. You're right, man. There were times when he was in the suit and there was no voice changer either.
Yeah, I couldn't.
And
because there's two layers of like reshoots. If you watch like. Man, because like there's original Ben Affleck who I met on set, and then there's like Joss Whedon reshoots Batman when he gained weight for another role. Yeah, and he's like really filling out that mask. And then there's like reshoot in this version where he's like extra space in the mask when he's talking to the Joker. And I'm like, and his voice keeps changing. And I'm like, there's a lot of Ben Afflecks in this film. So
that's what happens over 4 years, folks.
Yeah. But that being said, I actually quite, even in BVS, which another movie I had a lot of problems with, but it's Zack Snyder has this thing with me. Like I love Watchmen and Dawn of the Dead, and I think Watchmen especially might be my favorite comic movie of all time because it's an achievement
really cool.
for me.
Yeah, and I loved Man of Steel. I actually loved it. I mean, there's a few things in there that I had issues with, and but
that's a good example.
But it was a great movie.
It's something it's not a love-hate relationship, but there's moments I love and moments that just don't work for me. I don't want to get into Man of Steel too much, but BVS is the same thing. Like for BVS in this movie, like I actually really, really enjoy Ben Affleck's Batman. I like the idea of Dwayne Manor's crushed. He's living in this apartment, but still has the backing. I love Jeremy Irons as Alfred. All of his Batmobile tech, awesome. Like it's just really, really cool stuff. And I kind of wish they did more of that in his own solo movie, which he talked to us on set about as well.
I mean, honestly, like I would love to see an Affleck solo film where he's not writing it.
Yeah,
they just let him really kind of find some layers. Because I love him in the suit. Like when he gets into the craft that he has to pilot or drive, there's a physicality there that we've never seen. Like there is never a moment when he's on screen that he's not thinking about where his next jump is going to be or his next position is going to be, and you can see it. And it's Batman. It's a great render. It's not a rubber suit guy, that's walking through everything.
Yeah. That being said, I did see him once when we spoke to him on set. He was in the suit, except the back of it was kind of zipped down, and it's like an 1.5 inch thick foam. He looks like the Marshmallow Man. Poor guy. He must be so hot in that thing. But it makes him look like, his arms like that big, but his arms are only like still impressive.
I think we're seeing a similar thing with the Superman and Lois Superman every week now. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Oh, yeah, they do. They definitely enhance. Yeah,
it's pretty crazy.
There's a lot of that happening. Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we can. We're gonna like really get into spoilers now. So if you don't want to know any of the secrets, this would be the time to kind of fast forward or drop out or come back later. We saw Henry. It's Henry Lennox, I believe, is the actor.
Mm-hmm.
Something that had been rumored for a long time. He was in Man of Steel. I forget
small bit BBS. Yeah,
small bit, and great voice. He actually read some of the Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns at Comic-Con.
At Comic-Con, yeah.
To kind of sort of tee up what Zack Snyder's vision for Batman versus Superman was going to be. Well, of course, he's revealed as the Martian Manhunter in a tiny little sequence, which felt a little bit thrown in, but it was still cool.
It's cool seeing. Well, first of all, it's Harry Lennox, who's like voice, handsome, cool dude. Been a big proponent of the Snyder Cut for years, and like you said, he came on. He just loves this stuff, right? So, the way they forced, he's in 2 scenes. The way they forced him in this first scene to meet Lois doesn't make sense to me. Like,
no.
Manipulating Lois out of nowhere. And if you're so involved, Mr. Harry Lennox, why aren't you in the final fight or doing something to help? And then he shows up at the very end, and we can talk about that too. The very end sequence where he just cameos and meets up with Ben Affleck, skinny face Ben Affleck.
Yeah, he's very thin at the end, isn't he?
Yeah. Reshoot. Or that's the second layer of reshoots. He that was supposed to be Green Lantern. Right. Yeah. So they had talked to Reynolds about that.
Okay.
For 2 scenes, and that one was actually supposed to be Jon Stewart, Green Lantern, but then Warner Brothers was like, no, we're using him in Green Lantern Corps. So, so they stuck with Martian Manhunter, which, by the way, Zack Snyder kind of spoiled that a year ago in Vero. He showed a clipboard which said Martian Manhunter and Lois Lane. So that was part of the plan. A while ago. So.
Okay, so if you've been following the socials I think a lot of this stuff was kind of revealed out there.
Yeah, there's not many surprises. Actually, the surprises are the opposite. Like there are things revealed and teased in the marketing materials which do not exist in this movie, or if they do, in a very small form, like Martian Manhunter. Not really of any consequence in this film. It's just a nod for the fans. It doesn't really fit otherwise,
I was a bit surprised because Darkseid has been so heavily hit in all of the marketing materials that there is no. I mean, it's the tee up for the sequel, right? Like this whole movie is the tee up. It's the Thanos moment. It's like we're talking about him. We're talking about him. We're gonna, have some dimensional portal to see him every once in a while, but we're not fighting him. They have some really epic flashback sequences to show how powerful he is and to show what his motivation is to get the anti-life and to get the mother boxes and all that. But this is all just the big build-up to that eventual showdown. And that kind of surprised me. I thought we were going to get an epic other layer of combat between the heroes and Darkseid, but that doesn't happen in the movie.
No, they it's especially interesting because there's no version of Darkseid at all in the theatrical cut, right?
Yes,
it's all just ugly Steppenwolf, and Steppenwolf they made a little better, but he still has like cringy to me. Some people really like him. I like his more intimidating, beefier costume.
I like the armor. The armor is always moving and stuff. I thought that was really cool.
I like how lethal he is. They make him more of a scary, intimidating villain. Yeah. However, the first
until Superman shows up, which I loved.
Oh wow, yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Yeah. But when the first Steppenwolf scenes, though, he's still like, I'm going to show them the darkness, embrace the darkness. It's like, who are you? Why do you try to promote darkness? That's not a good motivation, dude. Yeah. But then later on, when they peel back layers of why he's working for Darkseid and what's really going on there, it's kind of interesting, but they haven't built up to any of this stuff. They just like threw in mother boxes and threw in anti-life. It's like people call it the multiverse. I call it the MacGuffinverse because no one really cares or knows. Unless you're already an established fan, none of this stuff works for you. So that's why
it worked way less in the theatrical. Like, because I'm a DC guy, but I think a lot of this mother box stuff was from the Darkseid Death of Superman comic that happened in the 90s. I was more of an 80s comic guy, I read some of the stuff and I've really focused on Batman, I think, through the 90s. And so I didn't really have an awareness. And I think there were a lot of us out there that, knew quite a bit about comics, but didn't know all of the minutia. and especially the theatrical did such a piss poor job of explaining the threat, right?
And the combination of the franchise not really working together. Like if we had a Wonder Woman and Aquaman film which talked about Atlantis protecting a mother box and Amazon that being a big part of their culture, protecting this mother box, and why these new gods or old gods are a problem, that it would make sense. But now it's just like they're just throwing it all at you. Plus flashbacks to the future and all. It's none of it really. This is a movie by the fans for the fans, but that fandom increasingly shrinking because there's a lot of polarity in responses. Some people love it, some people hate it, and then the critical reviews are like what you'd expect. It's like 6.8 out of 10 on average or whatever, and that's not. I think after so many DC Marvel movies, I kind of want to see 8s as a minimum going forward. You know what I mean? We've had enough experience now where I don't need 6s. I don't need. Which, by the way, going back to the theatrical cut, I kind of enjoyed what it was for what it was, knowing it's not that great. Like you, part of the reason back then is because like I saw Wonder Woman, and I'm like, this is a great second act, great leads, but it's a 6 out of 10. And BVS, I love parts of it, but parts of it didn't work. It's a kind of a 6 out of 10. Suicide Squad to me was terrible.
That was awful.
And Birds of Prey I thought was bad, and it's just they keep it's just fail. Like stop this 6 out of 10 franchise, man. Just level it up. So obviously this compared to that, well, maybe this is a 7 out of 10. So it feels a lot better. But across the board, we need to start like raising our expectations, I think, a little bit.
I agree. I did like the callbacks and the flashbacks, seeing Green Lanterns in action, even if it's not Green Lanterns that we're familiar with. It's Kilowog.
Or Zeus.
And Zeus,
it wasn't Kilowog. It was some other sort of Green Lantern that looks kind of like that.
That's dead?
The one who dies,
There's a dead one that they pan across.
Yeah, the one who dies to Darkseid in the flashback.
Yeah. Oh, it's the same guy at the beginning and at the end? Is it the same guy?
Because I'm not sure what you mean.
They have the Green Lantern in one of the flashbacks. He flies up in the air. He's blasting at some of the parademons. And is it that Green Lantern?
That's the one that gets caught and killed, and the ring flies off. Yeah. Okay. They kind of changed it up a little bit, but that alien is not unnamed. I forget which Green Lantern that actually is, but it's not
because there is
Kilowog.
Another Green Lantern panning shot where there's a dead, broken body, and it was inside of something, and it
I can't know what you're talking about. Yeah,
and it looked a lot like Kilowog to me.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I
because he's talking about killing on all kinds of other worlds and stuff.
Oh God, I hope not.
But dude, there's so much stuff in this movie. It's really hard to like keep it all, in your brain, right? And this is definitely a multi-viewing thing, but just not in a row. Like give it a break, a breath, and then go back to it. And I was rewinding stuff for sure, just in case I missed something, because there's so much visual stimulation in this damn movie. Let's talk about Henry Cavill coming back as Superman, which I think it took forever in this film. We knew it was coming. I thought that they explained the ramifications of bringing a Kryptonian back to life, or anyone back to life, quite well, and how they use the mother box to kind of be the catalyst to do that. And Batman's still kind of shaking from the visions that he's had and has doubts about it. Cyborg's got his own doubts. I thought all of that stuff was pretty cool.
Yeah, and they doubled down on like the Darkseid or Desaad and Steppenwolf talking about like this world is not protected by Kryptonians or Green Lantern Corps members, and the Cyborg tech is very anti-Kryptonian. Yeah, which also was a little bit of that was in the theatrical cut, but I agree. Oh, they also tied into that scene of Jesse Eisenberg in the life liquid with the boxes, talking to the Steppenwolf, or learning about that too. So they made a little more sense of that resurrection and also the consequences of it.
Yeah, how did they revive him in the theatrical? Did they use the pool, or I can't even remember.
It's the same thing. It's the Flash running to charge up the thing, but they kind of rush to it. You don't get to see them going through all the tech. You don't get to see Cyborg's father in there like doing the evacuation and stuff. So they kind of fast track that part of it to get to the fight, right?
I did like the way that they presented the resurrection of Superman. Actually thought that was actually pretty cool. But it is awesome when he's back. Holy shit. And boy, do I want a Cavill Superman thing again.
I know.
Whether HBO Max makes it just for the streaming people or whatever, he's not perfect. Like, I still like Reeve better, and there's things about Brandon Routh's stuff that I like, but he's just very good. He's just very... If you really believe that dude is Superman,
He's tremendously likable and increasingly likable over time. And part of it is like he's a huge gamer. He's so likable in The Witcher and doing all the press for that. So and everybody, He's really, then he does like, Mission Impossible 7 where he's like just incredible. And now everybody is like just demanding him to come back. But again, this is part of the Warner Media trouble. They're going ahead with a Michael B. Jordan Superman movie. So with some other potentially different Superman. But again, multiverse, we could have different. There's like multiple Jokers, multiple Batman. Who
I
knows?
think Tyler Hoechlin is doing a commendable job as Superman on the small screen right now. And I think Warner Brothers just, if they're coming at this without a strategy, a Kevin Feige plan, then they are just leaving money off the table by not giving they should make a Cyborg show. Cyborg is so compelling in this movie, and Ray Fisher is so good in this role. And he's so new to making films, and he's a guy that they could make good with. They could clean up a lot of mess by just going back and saying,
I agree.
"All right."
I think giving him an HBO Max show and tying it into something else, and I'm sure Zach would love to EP that. Like it would be very good, feel good moment, and a really good move by Warner Media to clean up that
100%. Same kind of thing, honestly, with Disney and Finn. I forget the actor's name right now. The guy that plays
John Boyega.
Yeah, John Boyega. Like the same.
Yeah, get him a Marvel movie, man. Let's go.
Marvel movie, or put him back in a Finn show that focuses on him and sort of gives that character the depth that we got robbed of.
I agree. Here, not to get into speculation mode, but like if I were like a fan theorist, I think Cavill will be back, and I'll tell you why. So. We talked about the different production companies.
Dude, I want to do this podcast with you every week. We're just a couple of freaking nerds
so many
going off.
Dude, every week we can do this about a video game, a TV show. There's so much going on. But let me tell you this quickly. So we talked about the different production companies doing different divisions of the DCEU, as it were. Yeah. One of them is $7 Productions, which is The Rock's company. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, who's partnered with Xbox and all that stuff right now. He has been teasing Black Adam for years and years and years. He's a smart man. He knows what he's going to do, no matter how long it takes, right? So this was like 8-9 years ago. He went in to have this meeting. It was going to be Shazam or Black Adam. He chose Black Adam. He teased art with fans, this and that. It happened. He did Shazam first. His company does it. Black Adam's on the way. They're shooting it like next month. He's got his whole cast together, and they know they're doing Shazam 2. And he teased during like the big DC Fandom event back in August. And he keeps saying, this is the guy, I'm going to change the power hierarchy of this entire franchise, someone to go toe to toe Superman. And he keeps saying 5 times he said this, maybe one day I will go toe to toe with Superman. Yeah. Okay. Tease. That's number 1. 2. Do you know who his business partner is?
Yes. His wife.
And co-president of $7 Productions.
Right. Ex-wife.
Danny Garcia, who is the agent of Henry Cavill, who was renegotiating against Warner Brothers for Cavill. So, oh my God, I'm telling you, Black Adam 2 or Shazam 3, something, Cavill's going to come back, and we're going to see Black Adam fight him.
I mean, it's just money off the table, right? Like, and the ego's got to get out of the way. Or a big ego's got to come in and sort of rein it all and shepherd all of this and have the strategy like Kevin Feige has. And what's amazing about Kevin Feige is I don't think that guy is a big jerk or a big egomaniac around all this stuff. I think he just is driven and knows what he wants to do, and he's very shrewd, and he just loves this stuff, man. He lives it. He loves it. And I don't know why Warner Brothers couldn't find that. I don't understand it.
It would have been Zach had they not messed around, right?
Yeah.
Here's the thing. The comparable piece between Feige and Zach is Zach did have a larger vision and really knows the comics. Kevin Feige's thing is that he always knew the comics. But more than anything else, the biggest, most interesting comparison piece between Feige and Zach is that everyone who works for them in terms of talent is immensely loyal. The small team, the ragtag group that started Marvel Studios, has only blown up. And all those producers, every assistant who worked for Kevin Feige over the last 2 decades is now a producer in one of those films.
That's awesome.
And they've never left. They're all there. And it keeps growing. And
that's
all the
Peter
talent.
Jackson and a George Lucas kind of model right there.
And when there was that big problem with Ike Perlmutter, the old Marvel Entertainment guy, between him and actors and movies and this and that, Feige got it fixed. Feige brought back Downey Jr. by himself. Feige kept Hemsworth happy during the whole Thor 2, Avengers 2 mess. Like, everybody's on his side. And it was Zach. His entire crew and cast will fight for him and do anything he wants.
Yes.
That kind of loyalty doesn't happen unless you have something special going on. People love you. They look at everybody who moved to Vero. We talked about Harry Lennox earlier, but like look at Clay Anos, the photographer, the DP, the Junkie XL, the composer, everybody, Michael Wilkinson, the costume designer, everybody, every cast member.
He shot in Vancouver a bunch of times, and I know people that have worked with him, and they adore Zack Snyder. They think he's absolutely amazing. Yeah,
legendary production designer, director of his own, would like die for Zack Snyder. Like, who else does that? Imagine building a franchise around a guy like that. Of course, the problem is that you got to elevate the quality of the films a little bit. But
and that's the problem. And like we still don't have that here. You know, he's still got all of this extra time. He was misdirected with these characters. You know, it's a cool alt universe take on these characters. And we have comics, and I said this in my kind of non-spoiler review yesterday, but we have comics like The Dark Knight Returns and Batman 100. There are definitely some really brutal adult-oriented DC superhero books that we can read. But the core of these comics still has to be, available to a huge sweeping demographic. And I think that Zack Snyder's vision for all of this, right from Superman breaking Zod's neck in Man of Steel, has just been too dour. Like there could have been some really heavy moments that resonated and affected us, but they didn't have to go all that way. Batman should not have, even after 20 years, been strapping, especially when we're just getting to know his Batman. We shouldn't. The first thing we see is him with machine guns on his Batmobile, just shooting everybody, and just killing and branding. Like that's a lot.
Exactly. I don't mind. Like you said, the problem is they didn't start in the right spot. You can't just start the franchise in phase 2. You need to earn it. Like I had this argument endlessly with people on our own Screen Rant team years ago, before it happened. And at the end, I was right. You can look back now, but I was like, hey, it's cool to have Flash on a team, but who is Flash? What has he overcome and lost to get to this point? How did he earn his spot?
Yeah.
A random guy who's fast is not interesting to me. A guy who had this problem with his father, who had to sacrifice and go through time and fought these villains, and now he's going to the bigger stage with other godlike creatures to fight even worse godlike creatures. That's interesting to me. Not just taking a bunch of random characters and throwing them together and being like, look, they're all awesome and killing people. And it's like, it's not that awesome.
It's not that awesome. And it would be if we knew them and we went for this journey for a while, right? Like do a young Batfleck movie where we see, not necessarily day one, but sort of in the middle of his career, and then we see that Robin death that is alluded to, through all of the Zack Snyder work, right up to the ending of this Justice League Snyder Cut. Let us feel those things rather than just it's an expository little piece, a little morsel that we as super fans know and can kind of tack to it. We should have just been able to feel all of this stuff. And I feel like Zack Snyder probably was the right creative lead to guide us there, but his own innate choices were misguided, And honestly, I think he should have followed up Man of Steel with Man of Steel 2. He should have made us another Superman movie.
I feel like if he had his way, that would have been the plan. I think the beginnings of the Warner Bros. Issues began right after that, because that movie made whatever amount, $600 million, whatever it was, and maybe not what they really wanted, especially in terms of reviews. It was not exactly a critical darling. But with BVS, that's where the hijackings first sort of happened. People forget that. People think it started with Justice League, but no. BVS was delayed like a year, and it had reshoots and reshoots. It became extremely expensive. And when he started that movie, it was a Man of Steel sequel, and then it kind of became this idea, well, maybe we can do a Batman, Superman thing. And then it became, oh, wait, now we got to do Wonder Woman as well. It's like, okay, now it's a Trinity. Oh, wait, we have to set up the Justice League. Let's include, like, tablet photos of like 3 other superheroes and call it Dawn of Justice. And it's like, oh wait, Ben Affleck's here. Well, he's a producer now. We're gonna have his writer come in and rewrite stuff. And it's like, what? It's like so from the beginning. There's never really been so we got one movie. That's it. And then the hijackings began and just kind of steamrolled in a whole bunch of different directions from there. Which is, you talked about Zack's vision being like his own sort of, he can have his own little world, but and then we also talked about Billy Crudup. He's being replaced now in The Flash, which is to me heartbreaking. But that like inconsistency and canonical breaks is everywhere. Like even in this movie, talking about like Aquaman's role. Like even they don't even respect each other. Like James Wan changed Aquaman's eyes. He has white eyes in this film. and he meets Mara.
And
in this
Amber Heard
film,
has an English accent in this film.
and like orange hair and a different
Yeah.
costume. And then we
Yeah.
meet her in Aquaman. She's got this like cosplay green thing, like Little Mermaid red hair, and doesn't
Yeah.
have an accent at all.
Yeah.
Aquaman's eyes are different, and Volko's hair is in costumes different. That's Willem Dafoe's character.
Yeah.
And Atlantis looks entirely different. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah,
Why
it's
are you not?
Yeah, it's totally not what James Wan was building at all. And it's like they didn't talk to each other, right?
No,
It's
imagine
so
Iron
nuts.
Man showed up in Avengers 2 and he's like got a gold costume and his hair is yellow and he's got different color eyes. It's like, what? He's got a British accent, like
But it's
Sherlock
the same
Holmes.
actor.
Yeah, it's like, well,
Yeah.
that's not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's so sad, right? Because this
Yeah.
almost works as a testament to why we're at this point, you know? And I didn't mind the introduction of Atlantis and the way, and this was our first kind of look at a lot of that stuff. I didn't mind some of the creative choices there. So we got to see Atlantis. We got to see Iris West get rescued by Barry Allen. I like that sequence quite a bit. That was pretty
Visually
damn cool.
impressive, yeah.
Yeah, where he rescues her she's just about to get into this life-ending car accident, and he catches her in super slow-mo. Lots of slow-mo in this movie. But it's very effective. I thought that was a really nice piece there.
a cool
I didn't
scene.
mind Wonder Woman rescuing everybody in the museum there when they've got at the beginning of the thing.
That was sort of like their nod to if you remember like the beginning of The Dark Knight, the big bank heist sequence. It's very much in that vein. I do have a big problem with that scene though, because I think they did a better job making her look powerful. Like she's dodging bullets, and like the use of slow motion there is a bit much, but it looked better than it did in the theatrical cut. My problem is the end of that scene where there's one like terrorist left, and he's like trying to shoot all the people, and they show how she's faster than a speeding bullet and blocks all the bullets, and then he's out of bullets now. So what does he do? He goes to reload his gun, and Wonder Woman, who's faster than a speeding bullet, instead of just taking the gun away or taking him out,
Kills him.
What does she do? She goes and blows up the entire side of the building while inside a room full of children. And then a second later, the girl's like, I want to be like you. It's
I
like,
know.
you just evaporated this guy.
She did the Zack Snyder move, man.
It's like, you're
Yeah, and-
faster than a bullet. Just take him out. Why you take the wall out?
And
my
it's like
God.
the wave, the percussive wave of clashing the bracelets together doesn't go backwards. Apparently, it only goes in one direction.
And the building should collapse and all those people die.
Totally right.
Oh my God.
Well, and the way, I mean, she outright kills those bad guys too. Like she's throwing them
Yeah.
into walls. You see their heads just splatter on the walls.
It's very different than 1980s Deanna, who beats people with ropes and love.
Very different from the Patty Jenkins Diana.
Yeah,
where
this is.
Wonder Woman really has a thought, and she'll like put a chair under a bad guy, or she'll gently catch somebody before they hurt themselves.
No, she's the full-on Amazonian warrior, which was I will say this on set visit, like the point of the Amazonians, they're supposed to be the most dangerous, lethal warriors for a reason, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that if someone's trying to kill kids, like she has a sword and a shield. What is she going to do? Take everybody out. But I did think this thing to show off powers was just absurd and didn't fit anything. So
she's a bit, for such an important character in the DC canon, she could have been served better. And I guess what they feel balances it out is how much time we spend with the Amazons. And I thought those sequences were pretty cool, but they were so green screeny. They were so affected. It was hard to kind of believe the moments. And, not only is it actors in front of green screens and everything's painted in, but all of the villains are also digitized as well. So it's just
and it's kind of a lifeless environment. They're running through fields of just like pure grass. There's no like depth there, and it's that's the most video gamey sequence in the film.
It's very video gamey, and I think they were trying to shoot for a Lord of the Rings kind of vibe with some of the fantastical conflict there, but it just it doesn't hit those highs, And we're still, and again, we have no. We now have Wonder Woman movies that we can reference as a point of entry into those worlds, but it's still not enough to, consume that much screen time.
Yeah. It derails. Well, there's a lot of that. It does. That's the problem with the film having too many subplots. It just derails. And because you're spending a lot of time on a sequence like that, and then jumping to a cyborg sequence, there are characters you see and get invested in for a second. And there's an emotional beat, and then they're gone for 75 minutes. And it's like, oh, so the pacing given the nature of this film, is horrendous. Like and the editing is very strange. There are some parts I feel are even missing. Like when we get to the first Justice League team up of sorts, when the Nightcrawler robot comes out and they're climbing up the wall, they don't really explain how the Nightcrawler or Batman's vehicle gets there.
Yeah.
And then worse, at the end of the sequence, Aquaman just shows up in costume with his trident. How does he know this is happening? Why is he here? It just kind of happens. And it's like, I feel like there's more there, how Aquaman gets involved, and it's just missing. So, there's a lot of that.
They have the Gotham Harbor coming into the wherever they are, the sewers or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Aquaman just happened to be in the area, and he comes in to rescue all the heroes. Well, I guess what we do recognize is that there's these pulsing waves going out around the world, and people are recognizing that people are trying to chase down the mother boxes. And he probably, I mean, we're filling in the narrative blanks here, but he probably
this would be cool stuff to see, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to ask the chat if you've got comments or questions about the Snyder Cut or anything you want me to ask Rob here. Go ahead and do that. Help me out by putting an all caps thing there, though, so I can see whether it's a comment or a question or whatever. Let's get some of you guys involved in this. What was your favorite part of the of watching the Snyder Cut, apart from having kind of like a personal connection with creatives involved and seeing that vision realized, which must have been pretty cool for you too, right? Because I know that when you visited, I'm sure the expression from everybody was from a place of like positivity and best interests.
There are two things that never showed up in this film. I'll tell you about later, by the way. But I was very happy. Yeah, again, it's weird because I did spend time on set years ago, and then the year later did a press conference junket for something that was totally different. But I'm very happy to see more of like the artistry behind the scenes. Like when we do the what do they call it? They call it the history lesson. We see the flashbacks of like Zeus and everybody fighting. We got to see more details in the work they put into everything. And they look at the Amazonians in that scene. You may not notice this, but all of their costumes are different because they're ancient. They're wearing leather and bone versus the Amazonian sequence when they're protecting the mother box centuries later, they're wearing golden armor. So like there's all those characters, many of them who returned are wearing completely different costumes, and people don't even realize that level of detail that went into that. And that's across the board. Like the amount of detail that went into like the mother box and casings for each culture has a different type of casing. The Atlantean shell, the red leather of the Amazonian. So it's very interesting seeing a lot of stuff in more detail and the way Zack shoots it with like a very photography mind. Yeah. That was cool. But I think more of the heartfelt moments you and I were geeking out about, like seeing like Ray Fisher cry talking to his mom after that, like that stuff was like, that's the kind of powerful stuff they should lean into. So that was probably my favorite part. That and just seeing, like you said, I wish there was more Superman. He shows up 3 hours into this film with a different color costume, but seeing him just like dominate Steppenwolf was makes me demand to see more of that. So that was cool.
That was expertly put together too. Like
he's very godlike. He's just like floating, and he's just like towers over this guy. That's awesome.
Whatever you got. He's not impressed, right? He gets hit by Steppenwolf's sword, and it just sort of nothing. That was amazing, and that was really expertly portrayed. Did you like that he was wearing the black costume the whole time, or were you kind of hoping that he would go back to the red and blue?
In the confines of this film, they don't explain. Like, I get the nod to the comics, and we should say, in reality, on set, he's not wearing a black costume. They digitized that, so they did that after the fact. In the sequence where he's walking through the Kryptonian ship and he sees like the battle armor and all these different costumes from
they don't even show history. The black.
They kind of show the last one open. He's like, "Oh, that's the one I want," because of marketing gimmicks. There's no reason for him to wear that outside of we like it from the comics, I guess. You know what I mean? So I guess it looks cool as a fan. I'm sure the marketers.
I wasn't one of those fans that thought the black costume looked cool. I never did, but I didn't really fall in for the hype of the death and return of Superman.
Yeah, I kind of wish they earned that in this movie. Part of it because they don't have enough of him in this movie to earn that moment or explain it enough. I mean, it looks cool. It's Cavill. I'll take what I can get, I guess.
I want them to. I mean, if they ever do more with them, I want them to go and revert. Absolutely. Nintendo Boy 17 says, "Hey Rob, any other films you know with two different cuts that drastically changed the film? The only other one I can think of is The Protector 85. I've never seen The Protector 85.
Films with a drastically different cut.
Well, the Richard Donner Superman 2 is the prime example. And I think you know, we have Jimmy Olsen from the original Superman is a bit play, has a cameo in here as one of the cops, and I love that. I love that there are any acknowledgments. I also love the fact that the Flash and his time travel to save Superman is kind of like a nod to Superman using time travel to save Lois Lane.
Sure.
I like that. That's one thing that I do like about the DC work in general, across television, across movies. There's always an attempt to bring in past stars and past creative work, and I think it was a Gardner Fox truck that was going to run into Iris West. And so there's like a lot of really interesting allusions to the lore, the external lore across the DC stuff like that. It happens in Marvel too, but I really like that in the DC work.
I mean, like it's a normal part of Hollywood to shoot a bunch of stuff and it gets changed on set and it gets drastically changed. But a lot of those things you see eventual releases or partial versions of that. You see it with like Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, right? We got different variants of that. A big one though is The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Mark Webb shot all his sequence with Mary Jane that never saw the light of day. They hit it so well they won't even acknowledge it on the Blu-ray release or the collector's edition. So
wow.
Like weeks of work with a different character and plot, and it doesn't even exist.
That's crazy. Yeah, do we even get Mary Jane? And I can't remember that movie, but she's not.
Shailene Woodley doesn't even exist in that universe, and she was
Unreal.
on set, cast, paid, hired. Insane, right?
Wow.
Yeah, and there's of course Rogue One, a Star Wars story, has a very different cut. I love that movie, by the way. I don't know how they saved it. It's my favorite Disney Star Wars movie, but
it gets better on every viewing, I find.
100%. Like more of that, Disney, if you're paying attention. Which they are doing. They're doing Cassian Andor Disney Plus series. But yeah, there's one or two I can't talk about legally. There's weird ones too, like Seven Sons, that weird Jeff Bridges film that changed hands from like Universal to Warner Brothers, and then because of that, we did a set visit for that when it was a Universal flick, and they changed so much of it, and it was a garbage mess. They just said, forget it, pretend this never happened. And then I don't know. So it's like, no one cares about that movie. So, but yeah, there's a bunch like that.
You forget, because we consume this stuff as pure entertainment and out of joy and love to be, enthralled and to disappear into these universes. But it's a business, and it's a complicated business, and the money has to be, remade. And now there's so much analytic information that goes into deciding everything. It's a very
I have a good
strange world. Yeah.
So you and I talked about this before, I think, but my first encounter with Hugh Jackman was on the set of The Wolverine in Australia. They shot it overnight in the summer there. They made this Japanese snowy village, and they had him like fighting ninjas in the snow, and he was on top of a snow plow. It was spinning in the ice. He was throwing motorcycles at people. None of it was in the theatrical version. I spent like 2 days with the second unit director, David Leitch, by the way, who went on to direct Deadpool 2 and Hobbs and Shaw.
Yeah.
The John Wick franchise, amazing dude. One of the best stunt performers and stunt doubles in history. They just didn't use it, and they ended up putting it in the Unleashed DVD version, and you get to see that whole sequence with the comics, that famous scene from the comics when he's full of arrows. You get to see him earn that moment. It's actually a great sequence. It was just too long, I suppose.
Oh
but
man,
you can watch it on Blu-ray.
Yeah, I want to watch that. That's awesome. That's a perfect way to promote that. Okay, I've got a few more questions here. Tiago Santos says, what do you think of the use of the 4:3 format for this movie, and also the next upcoming Mortal Kombat movie? Those are two separate questions, but
I'm glad you brought this up. One, I think it was dumb. HBO Max is not an IMAX format. We do not have IMAX home theaters. That's not a normal thing. So if this is an HBO Max exclusive, I think we should probably aim to serve the HBO Max audience.
Yeah.
And if you want to do your IMAX version, or have the option, have both. You can watch it in black and white, 4:3, or normal human version.
They're just files, right?
Yeah, it's dumb. It's dumb. And as for the Mortal Kombat, that's a mistake. By the way, Todd Garner, the producer of that, clarified that it is going to be available on IMAX, but it's the same 2.39 times by 1 format. There is no 4:3 aspect ratio for Mortal Kombat.
Oh, there was a discussion about going.
It came up today. He actually said it in a tweet, and then we reported on it. And then he responded to us and me saying, no, there's no 4:3. It's the same.
Was he joking?
Aspect ratio?
What was he doing?
He was just saying, someone asked him basically if, like Zack Snyder's version, will he have an IMAX cut? And he just said yes. That was his answer. So everyone's like, he must mean 4:3. But he's saying no. There it is for IMAX as well, but we don't have a 4:3 version of it. So
okay. 03 Blaird says, why did Whedon cut so many of Cyborg's scenes? Makes no sense, even with the time restrictions. Yeah, I mean,
we have to be careful what we say here.
Well, I mean, Ray Fisher has said that he was essentially a racist, and had
there's a certain.
And it was a multi-person discussion that people didn't want to see an angry black man, and that's what came back, and we don't know. It's all hearsay, but we can say this: like Cyborg's father, who's a black actor, and Cyborg's father's assistant in the film, who's an Asian actor, vanished from the film in the theatrical cut. So, not to speak for others, but Ray Fisher basically said like all the people of color in this film were kind of reduced or taken out, and that's in terms of timelines, that part's true, but I don't know how much of that is Whedon or Warner Brothers, right? So that's it. It's an awful situation. It was a poor decision because
they're some of the best parts.
Well, he is the heart of the movie. That's what Zack Snyder's been saying for years, and that was absolutely true. Partially because we don't really get to know any of the other characters any better than we've already known them, and the theme there is like he considers himself Frankenstein's monster. He's a monster, but he's also the most human of us. He represents that, and he's the one who's trying to do good by others. His whole arc is about how he keeps sacrificing himself to help others, which is so powerful in what this movie is really about. Well, and also I think in our current kind of digitized reality that we're all in right now, all of us super connected all the time, he exemplifies I don't know, like something that we can really understand. The power of control over the machines like that is a profound thing when our reality is so benefited from our internet connectivity and all of these different digital tools that we all have. And then here comes the Swiss Army knife of all of that. I did find it weird that he basically robs a bank to help out a woman that's struggling, and he just gives her a bunch of money in a bank machine. I thought that was maybe not the best way to show off his superpower.
That was a little video gamey, yeah.
Well, also, morally, doesn't like the woman needs help, but do you just steal that money and give the money to somebody? It just doesn't feel like a superhero thing to do,
I was going to make an Activision joke here, but it's probably not at the right time. But yeah. I mean, I don't know where the money came from. We'll assume it's someone bad.
Yes. Kate Ondor says, what did you guys think of Leto's Joker performance in this one? I thought it was miles better than the Suicide Squad version. I loved how he interacted with Affleck's Batman. I don't know. I feel Joker's so... It's like nobody's going to ever touch Heath Ledger is kind of how I feel about it, Mm-hmm. He was just so... amazing when Ledger came out, and he's just really like I loved the Joker movie, and Joaquin Phoenix did a great job of inhabiting that role and that character, but I still could never forget Ledger's performance, and so now Leto just feels like another one, he kind of feels like the Gotham Joker, to me.
Yeah, I'm of two minds. Did you say this is questions from Cade Onder?
Yeah.
Oh, I love Cade Onder. He's a writer for ScreenRant.com, everybody.
Oh, right on. Awesome.
Yeah, love this guy. One of our best. Good question, Cade. Cade's been tweeting a lot about this film. Okay. Here's the thing. Yeah, it's certainly better than Suicide Squad, but Suicide Squad is awful. It's in fact, it's so bad the director and Leto disowned that version of the Joker. You know what I mean? So, it's better than that. They try to lean into the Heath Ledger thing a bit with the look, the more smudginess, and he's not like this super slick, suave
dude. Doesn't have ha 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 written on it.
No, but I like how he's like. I mean, this is the most extreme dark Batman in that moment too, right? He's like, I'm gonna effing kill you, all that kind of stuff. It's a great scene for that, but it's weird. It's hard to compare to Ledger because even though Ledger infamously only had 12 or 18 minutes of screen time in The Dark Knight, he feels like he was the whole movie.
Yes,
we still haven't. He was like a random add-on who didn't belong in Suicide Squad. And in this, he's like almost a random add-on to a 3-minute prologue. At some point, someone's got to make the Ben Affleck Batman movie with Deathstroke and then one with Joker or something. So we actually get to see any of these characters live in their own world. For once, Warner Brothers, make a story about a character, please. Yeah. And then I would appreciate it more. But I'll tell you what, though, it's growing on me more and more just because Jared Leto is so into it and so passionate about it and so positive about Snyder and coming back and working with that team. Like that, for some reason, makes me kind of love the idea of it more of what, what could potentially be. So
Yeah, and I think he's definitely a good actor with the chops to inhabit that role. I just think it's an overused character that, it's just a dangerous choice to be a Joker, period.
it is in context of this film, the larger problem, and not to detract from what you're saying, Jared Leto's a quality actor, and I do want to see more of his Joker after this, but there's too many marketing gimmicks with this film, right?
Yeah.
So even with this character in the trailers, they have this "We live in a society" line, which everyone lost their mind over.
Yeah.
That line does
Is
not
in
exist
the
in this
movie.
film.
I know. It was just
And
for
all
the
those
trailer.
photos don't exist in this movie. The infamous Frank Miller's like the bat tank, which everyone was losing their mind over on Twitter. And I put this tweet that got thousands of likes saying, "Hey, we never saw that on set. That's a nice addition for the movie." It's not even in the movie. It's like one shot in the background that has no context or anything.
Yes.
There's too much of these gimmicks. It's like, guys, you have 4 hours of screen time. Why are you feeding us lies?
And that
online?
epilogue just goes on and on. It reminded me of Return of the King. It's like, are we done? Is this movie going to go? Are we?
And does Lex Luthor, Deathstroke, why are they in this movie?
Yeah.
Unless you've already greenlit this Batman movie I don't know about, and Lex and Deathstroke are in it, like let's stop with that. Tell your story. You got 4 hours here. So
I mean, it does feel like the beginning of an interesting idea, that apocalyptic ending, and all of these disparate different individuals with superpowers or their badass villains all kind of banding together to face the Superman murderer kind of idea. I think that's pretty cool. Little Injustice tag for sure. But it does feel superfluous. It does feel like it's added on for to get us talking about it more than it serves the value of the storytelling.
There's
Goku's got a great comment at his super chat. Thank you, sir. He says, "This is coming from a former Game Rant writer under my government name. How does it make you feel to see just how big Screen Rant has gotten?" That one's for you, Rob.
It's exciting because like Screen Rant, I consider my baby. I joined that thing basically as soon as I finished a master's degree. I was a reader of the site. It was a blog of 4 people, and now it's like one of the largest entertainment publications in the world with 300 people involved. And Game Rant, a site I co-founded 11, 12, 13 years ago, is now part of our network as well. So we, if you don't know, Game Rant, The Gamer, Collider, CBR, and Screen Rant are all part of the same family. And that is all built on a model I helped build for 13 years as part of my life. So it feels like part of my blood, and people like Cade and yourself all being part of that. And by the way, not to tangent here, that is what led me to meeting you at Comic-Con all those years ago, Vic. I grew up watching you and I met you there. Now we're talking about the Snyder Cut. It's like it all comes full circle. It's awesome. I mean, I couldn't be happier like you, Vic. Like this is we grew up with this stuff. It's pure passion driven. And if we can make some sort of business or family out of this, that's the ultimate awesome.
It's pretty damn incredible. Yeah, congrats on all of that growth. I know that the managing all of these different elements in different territories around the world is incredibly difficult. We had
very challenging.
Satellite offices shooting content for our
right.
shows.
Both coasts.
Yes, but we didn't get 300 people. That is a lot of people, man. That's a lot of bodies.
A lot of people, a lot of content. Well, it's a lot of different. I mean, we're just talking about today. We tinted at games and TV and movies, and that's like a subset of what we do. And there's so much to dig into. Think of all the topics we talked about. Every sentence we brought up today is an article to dive into, and we have 100 people doing that for the last 2 weeks. You know what I mean? So it's exciting, but yeah, it's tough from a business standpoint. It is very challenging, and it's weird to be in a case of, despite our size, doing 300 plus articles a day from 300 people, we still want and are looking to add more. We're constantly adding more and more and more. Like Cade, someone I found on Twitter and reached out to him, and I'm like, "Hey, I seen your game stuff. Do it for us." You know what I mean? So I'm constantly in that mode, which is exciting, but also daunting.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Thank you.
Let's see. I think we had 1 or 2 other comments in here. If I can get them in here. Okay, this one's from Black Star Afro 2. Do you think side stories similar to comic runs, for example, The Death of Robin and Teen Titans, do we think that Warner Brothers should make those? I guess is the question. Do we think that they should make some of the side stories? I mean, I think that's kind of what is under the purview of huge deals with Bad Robot and what HBO Max is all about now, right? Like they're going to do a Justice League Dark, and there's going to be a lot of new additions.
I think it's kind of open season right now, and it has been for years. If you go back to the last 5 years and just look at the amount of projects that were somehow announced, from a Deathstroke movie with Gareth Edwards in the style of the Raid. You know what I mean? Like all these things. Then there's been various versions of people pitching, Batwoman and Nightwing and all these other movies. Like Chris McKay was supposed to do Nightwing films. So like anyone, like for a while there, they were very filmmaker focused. So every director and producer was coming in to pitch anyone from DC. And even you look at James Gunn from Guardians of the Galaxy fame, when Disney dumped him, DC Warner Bros. Called him up. They're like, "Hey, we have 1,000 characters. Pick which ones you want." And then he ended up choosing the Suicide Squad to take a new take on that. But that's what it is, man. Like even Suicide Squad is another great example of like they are just sort of like redoing that. It's not Suicide Squad 2. It's called The Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Some of the same characters, some different ones, and that's kind of how it is now. So it's whatever they think is going to make business and whatever they can fit into their schedule is going to happen. And it's probably not going to connect together, but you're going to get some of these. I'm hoping are going to be great. So.
Do you think that DC as a movie output house is ever going to kind of line up like Marvel has? Are they going to find their path to some kind of a connected universe, or is it just all a mess right now? Because
there's if I ask you to flip it around here, who's going to lead that endeavor?
Yeah,
there's nobody. Is it J.J. Abrams or is it the Rock's company? Is it Snyder coming back? Because none of them work together, so it's like it's impossible. They've already dug a hole, and so now they're just trying to make profitable movies and sub franchises.
Well, the person that we haven't talked about today is Jeff Johns, and clearly, he's been a producer. What's interesting about Jeff Johns is that both he and Kevin Feige both worked for Richard Donner, and there's a celebration of Richard Donner back in the day where both of them, before their big movie producing runs and TV producing runs, got up on stage and celebrated Richard Donner, and they both have background in there, and of course Jeff Johns has all of this background as a writer out there. And I've interviewed Jeff Johns several times over the years. He's been really great to me, but his rep is terrible. Like he has somehow he's made a lot of enemies, and there's a lot of bad buzz about this guy. But if objectively, if you had a bird's eye view on all of this, he would have been a logical choice if he could fill those shoes.
In an alternate timeline, alternate universe, perhaps. So
I don't know what happened though.
Let's ask Ray Fisher what he thinks about Jeff Johns. So Jeff Johns was one of those producers we talked about who was sent in to kind of oversee Zack Snyder and didn't quite jive with that vision. But also, if you go back years past, some people blame Jeff Johns for what happened to Green Lantern.
Right.
Because Martin Campbell was coming off James Bond film? How did he mess up Green Lantern so bad?
Campbell is one of the most underrated directors.
How did he mess up Green Lantern? I don't think it was him. You know what I mean? I think it might be, so and Jeff's most recent DC comic that was supposed to come out was pushed to Image Comics. Now, we interviewed him like 2 weeks ago about that. We had to be very careful in this interview. And he just said, Image, it's creator owned. It's ours now. But I'm like, maybe DC didn't want it from you though. So we don't know. It's all hearsay. But his reputation's tarnished. DC removed all of his panels from all the events, and he wasn't part of DC fandom when all these allegations were surprising. But I think that's part of the problem with Warner Brothers. They have people in there who have these weird, complicated histories or controversies that will never leave them. So you got to wash that shit clean. So at some point,
it's really the remnants of an old, and it's part of culture. It's a big topic, but there is a lot of ugliness, and you've been around a little bit of it. I've been around a little bit of it. In kind of the way that old Hollywood would just, that hierarchical thing can mess up people being just good to each other.
You can really talk down to people, which goes back to what I was saying about Feige and Zach. They don't do that. They're people who work under them. They don't. They're all on the same plane, and they all love each other for that. But Jeff comes in there, according to Ray Fisher, and it's the opposite. So,
and
not going to happen.
It's a weird thing because we can sit here and conjecture all we want, but the faces that we get as two people from the press is everybody's on their best behavior, and everybody treats us with so much love and respect, and that's all we ever see. And I know it's got to be like this for you. It's like,
it's a total PR game. Look at the dance Warner Bros. PR played around the theatrical cut of this film. Oh my God, very sketchy stuff.
It's heartbreaking to see the other side of it, right? It's like nobody wants to read about these situations and these awful. Like, Joss Whedon, I loved his work. I still do. I love Firefly and lots of the things that he's been involved in. I love the first Avengers movie. I like the Age of Ultron. And and I've interviewed him. He's been on EP tons of times in the past. And it's kind of heartbreaking that, these people get all messed up with this, and they just start treating people like assholes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a stark difference between what people who worked with Whedon are saying about him on social media versus what people who worked with Zack Snyder are saying about him on social media. They're all saying, release the Snyder Cut, and all of Joss Whedon's people are like, this guy's a insert awful word and lawyers. Yeah, it's horrible.
Brutal. Nintendo Boy 17 brought up Martin Campbell, and I think you love this director as much as I do. But he says, speaking of Green Lantern, Ryan Reynolds had a live tweet of that film, and for Martin Campbell, at least he's somewhat made up with the Foreigner. Martin Campbell made GoldenEye.
Love it.
Casino Royale. Those are
Amazing.
two of my favorite. I mean, Casino's my favorite Bond movie. GoldenEye is probably my third favorite Bond movie.
View to a Kill, top 3.
No, I think Goldfinger. That's another.
Yeah, okay.
Or
Another
From
podcast.
Russia with Love. But he also made the Zorro movies. Like, Martin Campbell has done incredible things.
Yep.
And then and I was so excited for Green Lantern when it was coming out. And
Same.
oh God, that was
What a
heartbreaking.
waste.
My kid watched it. Even a couple of years ago, and she loved it. She thought it was so cool, but she has no identification with any of the the characters.
I hope, I almost think they should just bring him back. Let him play Hal for a movie and redeem that and make it all good. So they can use him. He would do it. He almost did it for Zach. So
well, if this might be the lead up to that, right? Like him live tweeting this. That's a pretty big deal.
Reynolds is a bit of a marketing genius. That was a big aviation gin plan. He owns that
but
gin
there's also talk that he's not going to be doing Deadpool 3. That he's going back and forth negotiating with Marvel right now.
Yeah. According to Kevin Feige, he would say Deadpool 3 is happening no matter what. And Kevin Feige being the guy who's usually on the cast side, I think I can't imagine him messing that up. You know what I mean? So
I can't either. But things do happen.
True.
Things do happen.
You cannot make Deadpool without Ryan Reynolds, though. That he is Deadpool and Deadpool is him. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
But if Ryan Reynolds wanted to make that happen, all he would have to say is to Warner Brothers is, let's try Hal Jordan again.
Yeah.
And then I think Deadpool 3 would be fast tracked. I think that would be happening right away.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, was there any other big spoiler or shock or surprise, anything else in the Justice League that we didn't touch on that you think we should discuss?
Not in the film. I actually think it was unsurprising in that way. I guess because they marketed every possible scene. Like, we all knew what Darkseid looked like. Every one of those scenes they showed, every fight they showed, all the cameos they showed. They even showed Martian Manhunter, one of these marketing materials. Yeah. And then the other things they showed weren't even in the movie. So they went overboard with that. But it's weird because it is a re-release, technically. Recut. No, what I want to tell you about is something that's not in the movie, and it's something we saw on set. So the big Justice League vehicle that Batman's working on this whole time is called the Flying Fox. It's the troop carrier.
Yeah.
In the concept art in the original plan, Alfred is with them in that final fight. He's commanding and doing ops like Watchdog style from the Flying Fox, and he's in a gun turret at the bottom.
Oh, wow.
Blasting parademons the whole time, which is really cool. And the other scene,
that would have been cool. I like Jeremy Irons.
I love him. I think he's so good, and everything he does is amazing.
Yeah.
The other thing that's not in this film, and it's been documented before, is on set we saw another costume for the Flash, one built by Wayne Enterprises, which they did not use in this film. You get to see a future version in the epilogue a little bit, but that's not the same thing. He was supposed to have an enhanced costume, one that doesn't require wires holding him together. The wires are to conduct electricity to enhance his speed and stuff. And he had another costume which didn't require that. It was advanced tech. They pulled it out to save it for the Flash movie, one of the 25 variants of the Flash movie they never made. So who knows if that's I'm sure it's gonna show up there. They just show a new costume. So it would have been cool to see that stuff.
When you left the Justice League set, did you feel like they were on the right track and they were going to make something good, or did you think it was still going to be a total troubled mess?
No, it was very exciting because there's so much confidence coming from the crew. You learn the most talking to people like the prop masters and the costume designers and production designers who've been part of the script building process for a year and a half, and working alongside Zach and formulating the whole vision now and for the future, because they know the whole plan. And then that was all exciting, and the cast was all on board, and they had seemed to be like, hey, the stuff you didn't like about BVS, we're going to improve it, and also we're building towards something bigger. So that it seemed like they were hitting all the right beats there. The problem is that talking to Zach, Deborah, and Chuck, the producers, they're all like, you could tell like they were, again, nervous and fearful. And this is months before the personal tragedy and parting ways with Warner Brothers. But you could tell like they were under the watchdog's eye. They had been pushed around with BVS, and it's even worse this time around. And they weren't even sure they were going to make Justice League Part 2. So it's like, how do you build a franchise if you don't even know you get to do 2/3 of the franchise? It's so that sense could never shake it. And also, this set visit again, we did it like 3 weeks in. What?
That's
and then
crazy.
The embargo was 2 days later.
And it was all stealthily done too, right? And it would have been
and then
just
hijacked.
You guys.
And then hijacked. Yeah. So it's like everything about all that was kind of like weird. But man,
you had to publish the article before anybody at Warner Brothers even heard that you guys were out there.
Yeah, that probably was the original plan. Yeah. Here's the funniest thing. On set, the embargo, again, I flew there Friday. I think I was going to come home Sunday night, and the embargo was Monday. And we're like, we told the publicist, the 28 publicists, all of a sudden, we can't do that. Also, Sunday night, we just kind of told them there's a big episode of Game of Thrones Sunday night. You need to give us an extra day. Everyone's going to be talking about Game of Thrones. And they're like, oh, true. So they called their bosses at Warner Brothers. Like, okay, you can have an extra day. So we pushed the embargo to Tuesday. So I flew back to LA, did a podcast, and then, 5 years later, here we are.
That's insane.
So
that's a journey, man.
It is.
Clearly it's part of your life to cover all of this stuff, but that personal connection of being there while they're putting that stuff together, it's a journey it is a very weird one. Let's play hypothetical here. Let's pretend we do get that press release on Monday or Tuesday next week in HBO Max, because I heard that they the demand for it crashed the server. I mean, I don't know.
That's cool, yeah.
I don't know how legit that is, but that seems plausible. Yeah. But let's say that the subscriptions went up by 150% or something like that. Does Zach get another kick at this?
I don't know. He's so good at playing the marketing game. He'll just say no, and be like, "Oh yeah, it's happening." So he's very playful with that kind of stuff. It's possible, but again, it has to be 100% creative control. It's probably not going to involve Warner Brothers Pictures, so it's less a Zach issue, more of a Warner Media issue. So, I don't know. Also, the other part of it is like you never know. Ben Affleck, does he want to come back or not? He keeps saying he's done, but then he came back for reshoots, and he is coming back for The Flash for a bit. I don't know. It's cool. It's possible. I mean, after the Snyder Cut happened, anything is possible.
Anything is possible. That's true, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything is possible.
Why not? I mean, if people love it and want more, sure. It's got way better reviews than most DCEU films. It's like the 4th best DC film or something, according to Rotten Tomatoes. So
that's got to be huge for Warner Brothers.
That's
got to be an eye-opening thing, man.
Again, it really comes down to numbers, because if if 500,000 people watched it, no one cares. It's gone. But if 10 million people and 5 more million subscribers, now HBO Max is like, oh wait, maybe we do want more of this. Maybe we should give Batman a solo series. Bring back Deathstroke. Let's go Justice League 2. So
yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Was there a favorite piece of this movie for you? Was there a scene, an actor, a performance, an element? What were you personally just so pleased was put into this?
Yeah, the problem with this film is like you don't get enough of the characters together talking, like another piece of concept art we never really got to see was almost like a round table thing, which is funny because they allude to that. He's rebuilding Wayne Manor. He's going to build his Knights Round Table in the Bat Hangar where the Flying Fox is hanging above. Where I got to go see, it's all real practical stuff. The bottom of that ship exists. The Batmobile's in the hangar. It's all there. It was amazing production design. Again, amazing production design. They had a sequence where they're all sitting around a round table without Superman trying to plan what's going to happen. And I wish we got more of that, because the best scenes where they're together. And one of my many issues with this film is when, again, Superman comes back randomly with a different color costume. He doesn't talk to anybody. You don't see him talking to Batman or Wonder Woman. He's just there. And he talks to Steppenwolf for a second, and that's it. Right. And it's like, that's not the Justice League. You get to see them stand beside each other for that iconic marketing shot. But how come the Justice League is not a team? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I kind of want to see where they're a team, and because I'm really bored of seeing CGI bugs get shot or exploded. I don't care. You know what I mean?
That and origin stories that have to take us in all the way. Like the thing about some of the Marvel origin stuff, like Civil War, where we get to see Black Panther for the first time.
Yeah.
They're running, like they're running into the sequences, and it's just like a shock, and it's like, who the hell is and we catch up with it and we care about it, and I feel like you know, the DC stuff kind of struggles to tell these origin tales over and over and over and over and over again, especially the Batman origin. I hope we never
It's
see
too
that on
rushed.
screen.
For me, it's like this is a weird analogy, but like going back to the Transformers movies, like like the Michael Bay ones, the decent ones, like not 2 or 4 or 5, like 1 and 3. Like there's never a scene where Optimus Prime and the Autobots are just talking.
Yeah.
Like why do they care about each other? They only talk to each other when they're saying, shoot that thing. And that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Have these powerful voices communicate together. That's where it counts. And the Justice League working together would be awesome. And it's why, like in Age of Ultron, for all the crap it gets, they spent like half an hour of them like hanging out in an apartment, having a party and talking together. And some of the best scenes in the entire franchise.
The
characters at a table.
I love the language clip that we all use all the time, which was, you know, an Age of Ultron line by Joss Whedon.
Put these icons together and have them talk. That's way more interesting than punching bugs. You know what I mean? No one cares. So it's like, anyways, that's my thing. Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you for doing this. This was super fun.
Yeah.
And I had an overall pretty decent time with it's hard to kind of like boil it down and like give it a score.
Yeah, it's tough.
It's because it's so much.
But it's also
cool that it's there, you know?
It's awesome that it exists, and it's cool to see these iconic characters all have their thing. And there's always cool, from a fan's perspective, all these cool teases of this bigger world and gods and all these things that could happen, and all that's awesome.
Yeah.
If it amounts to something.
Yeah.
But the teases are cool. The fact that it exists, it's cool. The work that went into it's cool. But yeah, as a take away the superhero fandom element of it as a movie, it's a mess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's too long or whatever, and that's fine. People love what they want to love, but it's important to say to any consumer, as a pro-consumer advocate, this is a product for people who already know they're going to like it. You know what I mean? It's for randoms or people who don't know the characters, love the characters, or love BVS. It's probably not going to be for you.
Yeah.
But if you have any interest in these characters, it's probably worth taking for your own research. You gotta experience this at some point.
And I also think the best way to experience it is kind of like, you don't necessarily have to go by the parts, but there is a natural break. But like take a break and walk away from it, and don't try to consume it all at once, because it's just too long. Like, it's just too indulgent. But I think if you chopped it up and took a space and then came back to it, I think you'd probably appreciate it much more. Which speaks to the idea of this a new layer, because I think there's a lot of successful stuff with the CW DC universe, but there is this other kind of higher production kind of opportunity, which Disney Plus is proving out right now with their programming, for HBO Max to create maybe the Snyderverse as a series on HBO Max that never has to go to theaters or whatever, but we get to live with these depressive heroes. The one point I will say about these depressed heroes and the deconstruction that goes on in the Snyderverse, it's being eclipsed by shows like The Boys, and I haven't watched any of Invincible yet, but I assume the animated show, that's going to go into some pretty incredible stuff there that way. And then Mark Miller's got his show, Jupiter Ascending.
Jupiter's Legacy,
Jupiter's Legacy.
Shot here in Toronto. One of my friends is in that show,
Right on. And Umbrella Academy also does a lot of stuff in that vein as well.
Yep.
So I don't think we need to deconstruct DC superheroes anymore. I think we need to.
I agree.
I think we need to just appreciate them and love them for the virtuous gods that they are, and find a way to make them distinct from what the Marvelverse is.
Yeah, I agree. I think, for putting everything aside, the most important thing is like, hey, we got 6, 7 with Martian Manhunter superheroes who are all now immensely likable. I want to see all of them again in their own stories and together. With more, bring in Green Lantern. But yeah, just focus on the characters more and bring them together. I think that would be awesome. I think no one would say it's not cool to see Jason Momoa and Ezra Miller, all these guys back together, Ben Affleck and Ray, you know what I mean? That would be awesome. So despite all the mixed reactions, and you talk about scores, this is like, maybe it's a 7 out of 10, who knows? But it's like, that's fine. I want to see the characters back, give them more story. I'm in, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's going to happen, man. I really do.
I hope so.
I feel like the buzz is good. The user reviews are good. I mean, it's all internet. We don't know yet, but it
depends on the schedules. In terms of Zach, right? He's got the Army of the Dead, not just movie, but universe. There's like a prequel, the TV show, and all that stuff. But he's also, after that, doing this King Arthur flick. So how much he's involved, we don't know, right? So it could be a while. So But yeah, I agree. I hope it happens.
I mean, between Zach and Patty Jenkins and James Wan, that's some pretty talented shepherds right there. You know, maybe they could make their own Justice League at Warner Brothers and kind of work together to chaperone this work so that there is a cohesion there and we really start to love these characters and they're not all brooding and killing. You know?
Yeah, or David Sandberg who did Shazam, right? That's a very family friendly. That's a great movie.
Yeah.
That's a great family flick. That's a very simple character focused thing. That's great. More of that, man.
Yeah.
So, I think I hope with some of these characters they get there.
The one thing is that it did feel like a cul-de-sac when this came out originally. It does not feel, even though Warner Brothers has expressed that, does not feel like Warner Brothers and DC movies are in a cul-de-sac at all. In fact, it feels like
the way this ends, you're like, oh my God, what happens next? Or, you know what I mean?
And also just generally, it feels like I mean, they're making a Superman with a black actor. You know, that's awesome. And they're making an Hour Man project, and they're making a Justice League Dark thing, and you know, I think there is a Batgirl thing that's percolating. It's supposed to be coming.
And and they're introducing Supergirl and Flash now, so like they're starting to get a lot more characters in there. So I hope with the main Justice League, if they're going to do Justice League Dark, I feel like we should also get the main Justice League there as well. So
yeah.
Sure.
Filthy and Free Publishing, thank you for the super chat. That's very kind. Says I need to ask you about Call of Duty.
It's because of the hat. By the way, Filthy and Free Publishing, which is a weird name, don't you think, Vic? That's my man Chris Tootin. He's like the lead on Screen Rant for our games division.
Oh, right on.
He's a relatively cool guy, I guess.
Does he crush you at Call of Duty? Is that why he wants?
I don't think he knows how to play, to be honest.
Okay.
I play it. I don't know what he does. Good question, Chris. Go home.
That's awesome. Snyder Cut could be the beginning of a new movement. Yeah, that's from Matt. We'll see. I guess you're right, man. We're going to find out if there is a press release. Everybody watch the skies for the bat signal from HBO Max talking about the success of this thing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. If that goes out.
This fandom essentially won, right? With the help of industry people. Release the Snyder Cut. It happened. And now what? You fed them and rewarded them. What happens next? They now restore the Snyderverse is Snyding. Do you think that's going to stop? Every time any one of these actors or producers or bosses are involved in any interview,
especially if this is driving subscription. Yeah,
it's a win for that group. So they're never going to stop. They're never going to escape this. It's never going to end. Zach will forever need to make DC movies. Otherwise, the world will be forever unhappy on social media.
Whedon says fandom is never not hungry. You know what? I think the best thing about this movie is that it ends with a For Autumn dedication.
100%.
Right?
The amount of heart, and even in all the marketing all along, he's been saying that there's so much heart tied into this, and everyone involved was doing it for that reason, you know? So I get teared up just thinking about it. So
Yep.
For sure.
Every father would. Dude, awesome to have you. And this was a great conversation. I can't wait to have you back again. We
lots to talk about.
Yeah, clearly could meet on the reg and talk about nerd stuff in every direction. But definitely do follow Rob Keyes on Twitter and check out Screen Rant if you don't already. They're publishing a million things a day. They're fantastic at what they do, and you two are, and you are as well, sir.
Thanks for having me on. I love being here. I feel like, I don't know, I miss you, man. We should do this more often.
I know.
May the force be with you, and restore the Snyderverse. That's all I can say.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you everybody all for watching, and we will see you very soon. Until then, play forever.